Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new build video with me, Sherman. Today we are taking a look at a build called the Fighter. Now this build actually works with almost every class in the game, except there is some minor things you have to do to make it work with, like, say, a Sork, Warden, and a Nightblade. That's a little different than what this is set up for. With the Nightblade, you have to go with heavy armor. You can't wear all medium, like this build is a 5-piece medium setup, and it is a tank build, but it is also a mix of or combination of builds that I've been testing a lot, and that is a shield tank or a block tank, if you will, and a evasion tank or a dodge tank, as I like to call it. So this tank utilizes both dodging and So, I forgot to do one thing I need to do real quick, because I was doing this test on a DK, because I tested it with every class, and I forgot to unlock this on this build and put it in its proper place. So, we're going to put this here. So, the way this build works is it does utilize shuffle, and you want to keep shuffle up pretty much as you can, just like you want to keep your damage shields and stuff up. I'm just going to kind of show you guys the play of the build so you guys can see for yourself. The reason it's called the Fighter build is because I used to play a lot of D&D, and when I did, I used to play a fighter. And one of my favorite characters was a human fighter that I played. And they were kind of like a barbarian character, you know, from the north and traveled south. But I never wore lots of heavy armor with them. I usually wore chainmail at the most, and that's kind of what I went for here. I went for like a chain armor look, as you can see. But we're going to go ahead and get into the stats real quick. So as you can see, the stats are 15k magicka, 31k health, 24k stamina. This is purely a dungeon build. This is not in-game trials build in any way, shape, or form. This is just a fun dungeon running build. I really like this build, honestly, and I do have to give a shout out to somebody, because they kind of gave me an idea for one of the sets, because the way I had this set up before, I was running Powerful Assault, and they suggested something, or they run a set, and I thought about it, and I was like, that sounds really good. So to one of my guild members, I know I'm going to get it wrong, Intervaliant, thank you for the idea. So you're getting a shout out for me for this. He suggested a set, and I kind of went with it. So 24k stamina, like I said, you do need a little bit higher magicka recovery on a Templar or on a DK to keep your magicka resource coming in, so you can keep your class's damage shield going. But if you're playing one of the other classes, you can easily throw Bone Shield on here, and it works amazing with it. So stamina recovery, 668. Not too bad on the stam side. This is a Nord. You can use other races. I've tried this with the Argonian and the Imperial and the Orc, and it works really good with those. But this is a medium armor build, guys. So if you go for a heavy armor build, you're going to need to change a few things to get it to work. Like, you won't need as much in the resistance area, because you'll have a pretty decent amount. We do have a 2800 weapon damage. I know everyone's going to go, why do you have so much weapon damage? You'll see when we get there. 37% critical, 24k spell resistance, 20k physical resistance, and yes, this is, like I said, it's a medium armor build. We are running the Lady Mundstone with tri-stat food and tri-stat pots. So let's go ahead and take a look at the gear. So you guys can probably notice right off the bat, we are wearing the Lord Warden. You guys probably noticed it earlier, the little blue orb that floated above my head. This is going to give you extra spell and physical resistance. But on top of that, when you take damage, you have a 50% chance to summon a Shadow Orb for 10 seconds. That increases the physical and spell resistance of you and your allies within 8 meters by 3,870. It just kind of gives you that extra things you need. Now, totally buffed up, you will have a 34k spell resistance with a 29, I think it is, almost 30k physical resistance with this setup. It's really, I think it is 30k. It's a really good setup, though. that you know, from testing and stuff like that. So looking at the gear, like I said, I was running Powerful Assault. All I did was change Powerful Assault for this other set. So the next set we're running is Night Mother's Gaze. Now this is why this is a dungeon setup, because in dungeons not a lot of people use Night Mothers DPS wise. So running this on your tank is just going to help you get a lot more physical pin on the mobs, and it's going to help not only with your DPS but your group's DPS, especially stamina wise. That's why I said it works really good for a group based play, mainly dungeons. So it's a really good setup for a tank to use in a dungeon, because tanks can actually get away with sets like this better in dungeons than they can trials, because trials are a little bit more, unless you're an off tank, and this thing can work as an off tank, guys, if your group allows it. So, Night Mothers is a really good set for dungeon tanking, like I said. It gives you that resistance, penetration value, all that kind of stuff. And you want to go force sturdy on the smaller pieces, and on the big pieces, including the shield, you want to go well fitted. You want that dodge roll. Now, wearing medium armor, you already get 20% with 5 pieces in your dodge rolling. This gives you another 20%. And it gives you 20% to your block cost reduction with the sturdy. So you're going to get 20% well fitted. So your dodge rolls, when you're using sword and shield, is 20% reuse. And as you can see, the cost is almost like, I think it's barely around 2K. So, and that's if you dodge and then wait 5 seconds and dodge again. But you'll have shuffle up too, so you can also dodge or have a chance of dodging, which makes for a really good setup. This build will also work in PvP with this. So, let's go back in here. Now, the next thing, like I said, so the 4 big pieces, the head, the chest, the legs, and the shield, you want well fitted. The rest of it, you want sturdy. The other 4 pieces, you want sturdy. Because you will block, even on your bow side, with this build. And yes, it does run a bow on the back bar. The other set we're running is a 5-piece werewolf hide. Now, when the person was talking to me about it, I was thinking like you know, that'd be cool, but you can either go werewolf hide or powerful assault here. I think werewolf hide works a lot better because it helps you generate ultimate faster, and generating a lot of ultimate in a dungeon can be really good because you can either fire Warhorn or you can use your main ultimate, which is Dawnbreaker. So, Werewolf Hide gives you max health, max stamina, weapon damage, and then on a 5-piece, when you take damage, you generate 5 ultimate. So, every 5 seconds that you take damage, because it's on a 5-second timer, every 5 seconds you take damage, you get 5 ultimate. So, you're generating ultimate pretty quick through this. Now, it does work better on a DK, I'm not going to lie, because DKs get 3 ultimate whenever they're in combat every 6 seconds. So, every 6 seconds, you're getting 3 ultimate plus this 5 every 5. You're getting 8 ultimate every 3 seconds. So it's like, or 5 seconds. Or 6 seconds, or whatever it is. But you're getting a lot from that. And then on top of that, you're getting 9 ultimate from Heroic Slash. You just generate ultimate like crazy with this build. Really, really good. So I'm running the 3 Werewolf Hide, 2 weapon damage, 1 magic recovery. And then we are running a little bit different on the sword and shield. So the shield is well fitted, like I said. You can pick these up pretty cheap on the marketplace if anyone's selling well fitted shields. So running tri-stats in the big pieces also, as you can see. I forgot to put one in the leggings. My bad. I'll see if I have it available. No. Well, it wouldn't change the stats by too much, so we'll just go ahead and grab that real quick. I think it's up here. I'm just going to grab a prismatic one and just throw it in there. There we go. It didn't change by too much. 25Ks. Stamina now with a 30K. You want to try and have about a 30K health pool, especially now with the newer dungeons. They're a little bit more tough to get used to, like the Scout Collar Peak and Fang Lair. Like running those on normal, this will work great. Running those on vet, if you don't have the experience of those dungeons, you might have a little bit of problem with the 30k health. You might want to take it up to like 20k or 32 or 35k, somewhere in there. But you are running Warhorn, so when you pop Warhorn, Warhorn's going to give you a pretty good amount of ultimate. So moving on to the sword and the shield. The sword is Nirnhoned, guys, with a hardening enchant on it. You can use whatever enchant you want on here. I just use hardening because I like that extra defense capability. Now this damage shield goes up every 10 seconds, or every 5 seconds, not 10 seconds. Not everything has a 10-second cooldown, by the way. So every 5 seconds I can get this damage shield to go off. So I try to keep it up as much as possible. And then with this, I run a Crusher enchant on an infused bow, so I can keep Crusher applied pretty good. It doesn't work as effectively as I'd like, but all I have to do is Endless Hail. Boom, 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 and it'll keep it applied. So that's the weapons and the gear. Now let's go take a look at the skills. Again, guys, passive-wise, just make sure you get all your class passives, even if you're not using abilities in those passives. Just make sure you get them. That way you have them. And you never know when you might be using them, what might not be. Now, with this, all the sword and shield passives, all the bow passives. On the armor, light armor, you just need the top 3 because we are using a 5-1-1 setup. We are wearing a light belt, a heavy chest, and everything else is medium. So on medium armor, we have all the passives. Heavy armor, we have the top 3. On the world skills, soul magic, I always get these 2 just because it's out of habit. Fighters Guild, get all the Fighters Guild abilities because you are running Dawnbreaker on the front bars, so it's nice to get this, and it's good to get Skilled Tractor because it reduces or increases the damage you do with Dawnbreaker against undead by 20%. Excuse me. So try to keep those maxed out there. On the Mage's Guild, you just need Persuasive Will. And on Undaunted, make sure you get the Undaunted passives. You do not need Inner Fire or Bone Shield if you don't think you need, especially if you're playing a DK or a Templar with this. But if you are playing a Nightblade, you want to go 5 heavy, like I said, 1 medium, 1 light, so you can get your classes resistance buff. Because otherwise you got to use the heavy armor passive buff to give you the resistances. And kind of sucks, but that's the only way you can play this build is a Nightblade. Unfortunately. Alright, moving on to the assault skills. We do unlock Resolving Vigor and Aggressive Warhorn. Those are kind of essential, especially if you're playing the Templar. Racial, all Nord passives. And then on here, we get Alchemy and the Provisioning, Gourmand and Connoisseur to increase our food length. So that is it for those passives. Now let's go through the skills. On the main bar, we are running Pierce Armor. This is great for the Taunt and the Major Breach, Major Fracture. But as you can see, this does 6k damage for you. So it's pretty good. Poker. Ability to bring down the resistances. On top of that, you can also apply the Night Mother Gaze Pierce Armor because of your crit chance with this ability. That's if you can get it to crit. Next up, we use Deep Slash instead of Heroic Slash. I know a lot of people like using Heroic Slash, but this applies Minor Maim to 3 targets and not 1 individually. One of the reasons why I use this on a Templar and a lot of other classes besides the DK is DK has talents, so they can throw talents out and put Minor Maim on enemies. But that Minor Maim only lasts 7 seconds, and it only applies to those caught in the talons. So, not as effective as it seems, but it still can be effective. You kind of spam it. So, that's why I like Deep Slash, is because I can spam this on multiple enemies and get it applied to a bigger group of mobs, because it applies to 3 targets at once. It does really good damage on top of that. And also, it does damage to the 2 that you hit on the side. So if I go down here, I'm just going to show you guys. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to fight these 3 dog creatures, whatever they're Zogs. And I'm going to show you guys Heroic Slash. So Heroic Slash on these, like if you guys watch, I can put Heroic Slash on one of them, and it applies to all 3. So and if I have to hit them all, so it hits 3 targets. So, but yeah, really good. It's a really good ability. So, I usually don't make my characters with mohawks, to be honest, but I thought it'd be different to play something, you know, make something look a little different. Alright, so back on with the skills. Next up we have Blazing Shield. This is going to be your main mitigation shield. This is going to mitigate a lot of damage. It does 34% of your max health, and for each enemy in the area that you apply when you cast this, makes the shield grow by a greater strength of 4%. So for each enemy, so if there's 5 enemies nearby, you pop your damage shield, you're actually going to get 16% more added to that 34. So it's a really good damage shield. To me, I think it's one of the best ones in the game. But a lot of people argue that the DK one's better because it applies to multiple members. But it's a really tiny amount that it applies to multiple members unless you have like 70k health. So when the shield expires, though, it also explodes and does 50% of the damage it absorbed back to the enemy. So if you have a 10k shield, it'll do 5k back to the enemies. On top of that, it can also proc your class's Age Experiability, Burning Light, which does extra damage on top of that. So, and this 25% chance isn't to one target, it is to multiple targets. So if your shield explodes and hits multiple targets, all those have a 25% chance of taking the additional 3,913 damage. That's one of the reasons why I like the damage shield. Next up is Absorb Magic. We mainly have this here for the extra block cost reduction and the extra amount of blocking damage you can do, or how much damage or extra damage you can block. Next we have Resolving Vigor. Great support skill for your group, but it's also really good for you to be able to have an ability that maintains your health somehow, and this can really do that easily. Next up we have Flawless Dawnbreaker. Another great ability, like I said, good damage up front, good damage over time, and then and on top of that it gives you 5% weapon damage while you're on the sword and shield bar. Another reason why we run Night Mother's Gaze is it gives us a little bit of weapon damage. This gives us a little bit, increases that weapon damage. That's how we get to that 2,800 weapon damage, almost 3k. When somebody puts, like, buffs you with Spell Power Cure, that puts you at 3k. And then if somebody actually hits you with, say, like a DK's in your group and they pop that thing that increases your weapon damage, that weapon damage increase will actually take you to about 3,700 weapon damage. So you get like 35 to 36, I don't know, 35 to 37, so it's somewhere in there. So you get almost 5k weapon damage. It's like, or 500 weapon damage. It's like, boom, here you go. It's pretty crazy. Alright, moving to back bar. On the back bar, we are running Binding Javelin. The reason we have Binding Javelin back here is because of Spear Wall. This increases the amount of damage you can block from melee attacks by 15% while you have an Age Experiability slotted. We are running a bow, but when you do block with it, you get 15% from melee on top of the 10% baseline. So you go to 25% damage blocked. And that's the reason why we have that there, is so you can still block on the back bar. Next up we have Endless Hail. This is mainly to apply Crusher. Does good, decent damage. Next we have Shuffle. This gives us major evasion, increasing our chance to dodge by 25% for 23 seconds. Each piece of medium armor removes, Warrant removes and grants immunity to snares and immobilization for 0.5 seconds for each piece. So with 5 pieces, you're looking at like 2.5 seconds of that immunity to snares and immobilization. So this is really good for you, especially the fact that you can dodge roll a lot. So Repentance is here for the heal and the stamina return. We have it on the back bar. It also gives us minor fortitude, minor endurance, and minor intellect, which increases both stamina, magicka, and health recovery by 10%. Not really needed, but the heal that it does and the restore of stamina really helps. Next is Restoring Focus. This gives us Major Ward and Major Resolve. You place this down, it's a circle. You can move in and out of it if you want. And if you move in and out of it, you can move out of it for 8 seconds and get back in and still retain the buffs of the Major Ward and Major Resolve. But you also get Minor Vitality and Minor Protection. Minor Vitality increases your healing received by 8%, and Minor Protection reduces your damage taken by 8%. Being a Nord, you get another 6% on top of that. So good damage mitigation with this, especially with your resistances not being high all the time. Alright, so that's the skills. We're going to go over champion points real quick, and I'm going to show you guys a little bit of this build in action. So going down here, 37 in Ironclad, 10 in Dispel Shield. The 37's here to increase or reduce the damage taken from direct damage by 15%. We have 10 in Dispel Shield, increasing your spell resistance by 1,000. And then over here we have 23 in a Thick Skin, reducing damage taken from damage over time by 10%. Now if you wanted to, you could take this 10 out of here and just put it into here if you wanted to get a little bit more reduced damage from damage over time effects, but you do have dodge rolling, so like dodge rolling doesn't apply to this, but dodge rolling helps you get out of those area of effect abilities. We have 43 in the Hardy, 43 in the Warlord, or Elemental Defender, sorry. Both of these give you 10% reduced damage taken. This one from physical, poison, disease damage. This from flame, frost, shock, and magic damage. And these do stack with Ironclad and even Thick Skin. Moving over here, we have 16 in the Expert Defender, reducing your damage taken from light and heavy attacks by 10%. We have 40 in the Bastion. This increases the effectiveness of your damage shields by 16%. I usually go 56 in here, but I decided I needed the extra points to put into heavy armor focus. With 28 points, you go up to 2,542 extra physical resistance. So think about that. Without this resistance, I'm at 18. I'm at below almost 18k physical resistance, and I don't want that in medium armor. I want that comfort area that I love, which is like about 20k. All right, moving on. 23 in the Warlord. This reduces the cost to break free by 10%. Bashing focus of 20 points, reducing our cost of bash by 12.66%. It's 1 point over, so don't worry about that, because the next update we're going to fix that. Moving over here, we have 43 in the mooncalf, increasing your stamina recovery by 10%. And we have 75 in the tenacity, increasing your stamina return and fully charged heavy attacks by 14%. This is how you're going to maintain your resources mostly, is through heavy attacks. Besides repentance, this is the only way you can recover resources really well. And in medium armor, you only get a 30%. So you need that greater amount. 14% from this really helps. And if you're playing, even if you're playing in 5 heavy and 1 medium, 1 light, still go with 75-43. All right, moving on. We have 23 in a Tumbling, reducing our dodge roll cost by 10%. Remember, we're wearing 5 pieces of well-fitted when we are on our sword and shield. That gives us a 20% already. That's a 30%. And then 5 pieces of medium armor gives us another 20%. That's a 50% reduced cost, pretty much. Alright, 56 in the Shadow Ward, reducing our block cost by 20%. We are wearing 4 pieces of Sturdy. That's another 20% plus another 36%. You get a decent amount of block cost reduction. Alright, moving on over here. 43 in the Bless. This increases our healing done by 10%. When we put down our circle for our resistance buff, our rune focus, that gives us an extra 8% healing done. Gives us minor mending for the time that we're in that circle. So we actually have an 8% healing done, making that vigor work a little bit better. Over here we have 35 in the Weapon Expert, Physical Weapon Expert. This increases your light and heavy attack damage done with sword and shield by 20% and your bow. You also get 56 in the Master at Arms, increasing damage done with direct damage attacks by 20%. Light and heavy attacks are direct damage, but if you wanted to, you could put more into here if you wanted to. The main reason why you have the points put in here in the first place is 1, retaliation. When you block an attack, your next light attack used within 7 seconds deals 30% more damage. Reposit. When you block a melee attack, you have a 15% chance to deal 5,634 damage back to the enemy. That can happen every 5 seconds. And then Butcher. Increases the damage done with your light and heavy attacks by 5% when the enemy's below 25% health. I did try Kvetch's Gladiator with this setup, and it works out really well, because you do get that extra 1,800 weapon damage when they're below 25% health. But honestly, Night Mother's it works out just a tad bit better, because it gives you that just little bit extra penetration value. We have 23 into shattering blows, increasing your damage done to enemies with damage shields by 10%. And I was talking to somebody about this, like when you're in Arx Caranum, the dungeon, and you're fighting the final boss, she has a damage shield she puts on herself. If you have this, 23 points, you do more damage to her than anyone else in the group when she has that shield up. Usually you can even do higher damage than the DPS. Alright, next up, 43 into Mighty, increasing your physical, poison, disease damage by 10%. We have 23 into Precise Strikes, increasing our critical damage done with stamina abilities by 10% and our critical healing. And then 17 into Piercing. This increases our physical penetration by 42. In veteran dungeons, the mobs all have 18,200. So you want to try and get as much penetration value as you can as a tank, a healer, DPS, whatever, to bring those things down a little bit quicker. That's why I run Night Mother's Gaze with this setup, is so that I can apply that penetration value extra, not only for myself but also for my Stam DPS. Really helps them out. And it's nice to get an extra 1642 penetration. So that's that with that. Now let's go ahead and I'm just going to show you guys real quick on this giant, this build. And then I'm going to take this build to another area. We're going to fight a boss. I love that thing. See, and I love the dodge too, because even with the damage shield up, you still have a chance of dodging. So, but yeah, that's pretty much how the build works. You can play it like any other tank. You can dodge roll. You can do all kinds of stuff, and it just saves you a lot of resources. So, we're just gonna go take on a boss that I know is pretty simple, which is the crab boss here in Stone Falls. Now, I am on PTS right now, guys. I find that doing stuff on PTS is a little bit easier than being on live when you have a million players running around you. So, come on. We've been having some load time issues on the test server. Ride like the wind, my valiant bear. Now, like I said, this setup can be done on any class. You just have to make sure that you utilize the right skills for it, that kind of thing. Like, you need your class's armor buff. You need, and you don't need it on the DK. Like, you can use the armor buff if you want from heavy armor focus, but only if you're wearing 5 pieces of heavy armor can you do that. That's why I said, like, the Nightblade can get away with it, but the DK can use their own classes thing, like volatile armor or whatever. Trash. Trying to save the baby crabs for the thing. Now, basically, you want to make sure that you have your buffs up quite a bit. Keep the taunt going. And just, like, if the boss isn't hitting you, don't worry about your damage shield. But as you guys can see, like, I'm almost up to already dropping a Dawnbreaker again. And I'm not using the Heroic Slash, so... And that's basically why we have it, is just to drop that Dawnbreaker whenever we can get it up. Or get it. Shouldn't have said it that way. Because in a dungeon, it's fine if you're doing like 6 to 7k DPS. Like, that's fine. Nobody's going to complain. Nobody's going to really bother about it. You know, they're going to be like, oh wow, this guy's like doing some hits. Cool. And that Shadow Orb, if you have Lord Warden, will be up a lot. Now, that's going to be the hard thing, is getting the Lord Warden set. To be honest, it's one of the harder sets to get, unless you have a good group that's willing to work with you to get it. So, I'm going to go ahead and kill this guy off. I'm going to try and kill him off real quick. I can't promise anything, you know. Still got 600k health to go, man. Here we go. So I was waiting for potion going, so I can do this. I'm gonna go ahead and stand on this side so I can get him the arrows. Now, Shuffle won't make you dodge all the time, but if you do need to dodge, you can. And it's not going to kill your resources. Like, the only reason why I'm going through so much resources is because I'm just kind of just playing. So. Usually I don't even barely go through any. Gonna do death to the big crab, raw, and a little crab just comes in and bites my butt. Alrighty, so as you can see, it does work. It does its job. You might have a little bit of resource issues. If you can manage the resources, like, that's the easy part. And you got to think, in a group situation, you're gonna have more people with you. It's not gonna be just you by yourself. So. And then the reason I use that boss is because it does summon ads and stuff, and it's just a good boss because, you know, it's easy to get to. So, trying to do that in a dungeon ain't gonna happen. I'll be there for a while. But that is the fighter, guys. That is my new, one of my new tank builds. And like I said, you do use the evasion, so you do use the dodge, and you do have to, you know, you can use the dodge rolling, and that's what the evasion tank's all about. Is dodge rolling, like avoiding damage when you see the big circles coming in. Like if you know he's going to do a big hit, you can dodge roll past him, come right up and taunt, and then go right into, you know, continuing into combat. So, but yeah, that is the fighter build. It is a build I came up with because, you know, thought it'd be cool, thought people would enjoy it. But yeah, that's pretty much the build, guys. I hope you guys like it. I do like this build. I think it's going to be one that I might actually do with one of my characters. I do have several characters over on the live servers, so I might actually make this build and play it. I might do it with my Orc Sork. I think that'd be really cool to play this build with. So, but yeah, if you guys like this build video, hit that like button. If you guys want to see more builds by me or other videos by me, hit that subscribe button. I do want to let some people in on some stuff. So tomorrow's live stream is going to be talking about tanking and like gear sets and like how to get the right appropriate setup. So keep an eye out for that. That'll be coming tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow evening I'm going to try and live stream with Killer Mac and maybe a few others and discuss some stuff about the game. So we'll have to see. So other than that, thanks for watching, guys. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.